Like, not having somebody dedicated to doing your auto engineering and streaming stuff is hard. Not that I would know because I've never done that with people before. Hi, welcome to Train Sim World. As I like to call it, just Routworks World because it's made by the same people. I don't know why they didn't just call them the same. Anyways, uh, I'm recording this video, so I want to talk about some of the problems that, and I gotta fix this. This is bugging me. There we go. Now I'm not gonna be so loud and obnoxious as I already am. Um, no, I want to make this video because I want to talk about some of the things that I don't like about Routworks World here, Train Sim World, and this is going to be. I want to pre say this by saying that these are my opinions based on gameplay mechanics that are employed in this game, and these are gameplay mechanics that I do not feel fit the genre of train simulation or of any kind of simulator. I don't think any simulator should have these particular gameplay mechanics. And those gameplay mechanics are there's open world sandbox, which would be your Minecraft. You could say Kerbal Space Program would fall into this. And those are games where it's, here's a box of Legos, go have fun. And then there's, dynamic gameplay, dynamic scenarios, dynamic situations, things that can change and are fluid and open. And games that do that really well, and are games like, well, Minecraft, you could say, is a dynamic scenario. Kerbal Space Program is a dynamic scenario. Uh, I would argue that Grand Theft Auto might fall into that, but not. I wouldn't argue it hard. Uh, Trying to think of like other big open. Any game that says it's open world is going to have more dynamic gameplay experiences because you're out exploring the world and then things happen and story might happen, or maybe there is no story. Kerbal Space Program doesn't have story. It has a career mode, but you can go into sandbox mode and you're just building rockets and launching them into the sky and just doing whatever the heck you want to do. And that's a dynamic gameplay element. Look at Run 8. If you haven't ever played Run 8, you probably won't understand this. If you have played Run 8, you will understand that you load up the world or you connect to a server or whatever to do multiplayer in Run 8, and you're not being told by the game what to do. The game isn't saying, take this freight train over there. The game is just saying, here's the freight train. Here's the boxcar. The game is just handling the physics and the rendering of everything. You, the player, and if you're playing in multiplayer in Run 8, you, the player, and the other players are deciding where that train goes, how that train is handled. You decide what you get to do in that game. You don't have somebody holding your hand. And when you're done doing what you want to do, you don't get a reward from it, which is kind of what a lot of us want out of a gaming experience. Is we want that reward. We want a gold sticker. We want to see our name in the scoreboard. We want all that kind of stuff. And you don't get that with games like Run 8. But in Run 8, you get the satisfaction of completing a task. You might be running a local and delivering boxcars. Or you might be running a local and delivering cars to an industry. You might be, sorting cars in a yard and building them with another player. And that in itself, completing a task is its own sort of pseudo reward, but you're not getting a true, satisfactory reward. But you are free to do as you want. Picture this. I know many of you who are probably watching this probably have model train layouts. you go to your model train layout and you can just throw a locomotive on the track and drive it around however you want. You don't have somebody telling you how to drive that train. You are limited by the confines of the train track and the train layout. You can't just push a button and have the train jump off the track and drive into the kitchen. I say that knowing full well that I've been to a model railroad that the guy's layout went through his kitchen. I kid you not. I was sitting in his kitchen, went in the fridge to get a Coke, reached into the fridge, closed it, and turned, and my train was sitting right there next to me. Like the layout was next to the kitchen, and part of it, like had he not built the layout, that would have been his dining room. It was an awesome layout. It no longer exists, unfortunately. But I got sidetracked there. I went off on a tangent. And I'm not moving my mouse because I talk with my hands, so if the game just doesn't seem like it's moving, the game hasn't frozen. I just have let go of the controls. So, we kind of... I'm hoping by my very rough explanation is you're getting an idea of what a dynamic scenario would be. I put you into a room, and you can walk around that room and do whatever you want within the confines of that room. Maybe that room is 10 miles square, and there's a jetpack, and there's machine guns, and there's hang gliders, and there's cars, and blah, blah, blah. And I just say, go have fun. You're in a room, and you have all of these toys, and you can do whatever you want. Or I've put you in a small room, and I've given you a box of Legos and said, build whatever you want. Kerbal Space Program, build a rocket, go to the moon. Minecraft, build a castle. You want to recreate, Winterfell? Oh man, I hate myself for that. It's been too long since Game of Thrones has been on TV. You want to recreate Winterfell from Game of Thrones in Minecraft? Do it. There is nothing that says you can't. Do nothing. So, in Run 8, you are limited to, you can only drive the train forward and backwards, and you can only throw the switches as you go along the train tracks, but you have the freedom to drive that train how you want. You want to do 100 miles an hour? Do 100 miles an hour. You want to run that manifest from Barstow to Bakersfield, but you want to take the long way and, zigzag up and down all over the place? Do that. No one's going to be mad at you. Well, other players will be mad at you for it, and that's only if you're playing on a multiplayer server, but if you're playing by yourself, do it. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. Now we get to Railworks, and we get to in Train Sim World, or Railworks World, or whatever the hell I'm calling it when I'm ranting about it. And it's a very linear gameplay experience. You have limited freedom. I can walk wherever I want. I can walk across these train tracks. If I really wanted to, I could walk up to that boxcar, open the door, and climb inside of it. There's no gameplay mechanics saying I can't do this. Because look, I'm now in this boxcar. No gameplay mechanics said, you can't do that. That's against rules. It's actually really, really cool that the developers allowed you to do that. That adds really high levels of potential. Like, let's say I delivered this boxcar to an industry. I get it to the industry. I could walk up onto the loading dock, and I could walk over and open up the boxcar. And maybe as soon as the doors open, maybe not a player, but like gameplay, some kind of mechanic in the game would drive a forklift in and out and load the boxcar. And if this boxcar were loaded, I could walk in there and look and see, pallets of boxes, or, just whatever is loaded in this boxcar. It could be pallets, it could be crates, it could be, I could open up this boxcar, and there could be boards across it, and it's full of grain, because they actually used to put grain in boxcars. Not modern boxcars like this, but they used to, 40-foot boxcars could hold grain. And that's actually what they did before they had grain hoppers. And that's really, really cool. But, let's say I were to fire up that locomotive right there, or, any of these locomotives in the yard. I'm limited to the yard. Like, if I try to take it out of the main line, I can't throw the main line switches. I can't. If I do, set red signal, the game yells at me and sends me back to the main menu. Gives me an error message that says, you failed, goes back to the main menu. It punishes me for trying to be free. Another example, let's take this mixed freight train here. Let's say I wanted to run this mixed freight, okay? I'm climbing the steps, It is currently 9:12 in the morning at game time. Sit down. This train isn't supposed to go until 11:53. This train has to sit here 2.5 hours. Now that's okay. I can understand that, when a train is built by the yard, when the train is built in the yard, it is scheduled at a set time to go. But from a gameplay experience, I want to go. I don't want to sit here and wait. 2.5 hours before I can drive a train. And I know what someone's gonna sit there and say, "Oh, you don't want to wait 2.5 hours. Just do a scenario and drive the train that way, and then you don't have to wait the 2 hours because you're doing scenarios." That's the problem. I don't want to do scenarios. Scenarios way too limited, too linear. And I guess in order to explain that, I have to explain what a linear gameplay experience would be. And so, let me take a drink, and I will explain that. So, a linear gameplay experience, if you've ever played anything like Call of Duty, or Halo, or Battlefield, or any game with a story mode, where, you start out at point A. Let's say I'm a character and I'm at this port. How am I taller than this Porta-John? I'm taller than either this Porta-John is poorly scaled or I'm a giant. Okay, well, let's say an example of a linear gameplay experience would be, I'm a super soldier in the war and I got to go from this Porta-John to this Porta-John, and that's a level right there. If you've ever played Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead is a really good example of that, because you're 4 people, you leave a safe house, you walk across the map, you fight zombies, you complete little side objectives maybe, and then you get to another safe house. That is, you're going from point A to point B, and you're following a path. You're following a linear path. A linear path. A linear path. And scenarios and general gameplay mechanic of, what is that? Oh, it's, I'm looking at that light right there, and just from here, like, the post is either not rendering properly or just blends into the background. Anyway, that linear experience of going from point A to point B and getting a reward for it, which is good, is not what I feel and not what I want out of a train simulator. Yes, driving a train is going from point A to point B and getting paid. Okay? That's how it is in the real world. But if I'm a gamer and I'm playing a game, a train simulator, I want the freedom to do that how I want to. I want to be able to run a local. I want to be able to drive this train and, you know what, no, I'm not feeling it, and stop it over there and drive a different train. I want the freedom to choose how I do the things. I don't want to grab that train and have to wait, 2.5 hours, like this little timer that will never go away now that I've gotten in that locomotive, to go away. And I don't want to do a scenario where I start out in that train. I want the freedom to do what I want to do. And that's always been my problem with Railworks. And I know what someone's going to say. I know someone's going to be like, "Oh, Railworks has that free roam mode." Even free roam is limited. Right now, if you've got Railworks, pause this video. Go into free... Well, don't pause the video. Go into free... I want you to, when I'm done explaining this, pause the video and then come back. Go into free roam. Grab a locomotive from the yard. Go into the free camera and move that camera as far away from that locomotive as you can. You won't get very far. Maybe it's just there's a mod that I need to install or something to get around that, but there's an invisible wall around your locomotive once you've selected it that you can't go beyond that. In other games, other train simulators, Railwork or Run 8 and trains, they don't do that. You grab a locomotive and you can go anywhere on your railroad. I mean, things are about to get weird. Here's Run 8, okay? Here's Run 8. I'm currently in UP Bakersfield Yard, and I'm free cam flying around. And is anyone on the server? No one's on the server, so I'm not going to screw anything up. Yeah, I host a server. Here I am in free cam, just looking around, checking things out. And you know what? I want to go. This is the far end of the railroad. I'm over here, in UP Bakersfield. I'm over here at this signal that it just went green. See, I'm right there. Let's say I'm going to click Cajon Sub, Barstow, Needles, Seligman. This is like 300 miles away. If my camera's only limited to, a half mile from this locomotive, if I want to go over here, I have to drive all the way over there. It takes, we've done this before, it takes about 8 hours to get to to East Seligman, right here, where the signal's flashing. It takes 8 hours to get there, okay? I'm not driving a train for 8 hours to get there. We'll just take it to Sydney. No. There's an easier solution. You see what I can do is I can teleport right here. I've now just traveled hundreds of miles to the other end of the railroad. So I teleported over here. And I'm free. If you're still hearing engine sounds, it's because Train Sim World is still playing sounds. But I'm free to go anywhere in the world that I want. And that's great. That's fantastic. That's awesome. That allows me to really experience the whole world. What's hilarious is every time I Alt-Tab, it's instantaneous for me, but for whatever reason, the streaming software can't catch up, and I say streaming, I'm using it as recording software right now. I'm using OBS. OBS is like, I don't know what to do. He went to a full screen game. Black screen for 30 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever. So, Run 8 in trains allows me to have a really, really fluid, dynamic experience, and I can share that experience with other players. Railworks doesn't. It holds your hand too much. I feel like, if I do a scenario, I don't want the game holding my hand. I want the game to tell me, here's a train, have fun. That's what Run 8 does. That's what Trains does. Why can't Railworks and Train Sim World do that? Those are my problems with Train Sim World and Railworks, is they hold your hand too much, and it's linear gameplay, and I'm not a fan of it. Now that's not to say, it means you hate this game. No, I don't. I hate the gameplay mechanics, and I don't like the general physics model. They don't have that good of a physics model, but this game is goddamn gorgeous. It looks really, really good. I have a computer that is capable of running this at fairly high FPS, or fairly high settings, and I'm currently getting about 30 FPS. And I love all the little things like I'm walking around, you can hear my footsteps going crunch, 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 crunch across the gravel. And I can, if I want to throw the switch, I got to walk up to it and throw it. I feel like I'm really, truly interacting with the world. And that's not really something you get with games like, look, I can pick up the fuel nozzle. If I had a locomotive here, I could fuel up the locomotive. That's really cool. Trains doesn't do that. Trains, you're perpetually stuck in a free-flying camera. Run 8 actually does allow you to walk around. In fact, you have to be walking on the ground like this to throw switches. And you move around much like you would here. In Run 8, you walk around, throw switches, can climb up and down the cab, the locomotives and stuff. And it's fantastic. And Railworks has always been, in my opinion, one of the best looking train simulators, but the worst playing. The gameplay is what kills it for me. That's why it's just like, I look at it and I get bored. I get so bored so fast playing these games. I have spent a full 12-hour day playing Run 8. I have spent countless hours at a time building routes and driving trains in trains. I can play Railworks and I can play Train Sim World for maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes at the most before I just go, I'm bored. Because it's holding my hand and I don't like it. I don't feel free to explore this world. and if you actually look at my player card stats for this, like when I'm selecting the character profile that I want, I have more distance walked in Train Sim World than I do driven. I think I've got like 2 miles driven and like 30 miles walked. I think before I got this computer, I had actually walked the entire railroad at one point. I just put a bunch of quarters on W and just went, the entire length of the railroad. And this game looks fantastic. I mean, there are some things, like, I don't feel like the paint should be as shiny as it is on some of the cars, but I mean, that's just minor things. I do really dislike the fact that, and I know that people have made reskin mods to change the textures for some of the cars, but I really don't like that every piece of rolling stock, with the exception of the tank cars, is painted CSX. I mean, CSX boxcar, CSX boxcar, CSX hopper car, CSX hopper car, CSX boxcar, DTGX tank car, DTGX, DTGX. You see what they did there? See that? Dovetail Games. And because they're not an actual railroad, X, because it's a private car. CSX puts a T because X can't be at the end. X would imply that it's a private car, so they have to have a T, and that's why CSX is CSXT. But if you look at this, right, it's just the same generic boxcar, and I get it. It's really, really hard to make 3D models. I know this from first-hand experience. So, I mean, I would expect them to have just one boxcar when the game first came out. I would hope that they would have maybe 2 or 3 different skins, maybe, that would randomly be generated. So I've got this CSX. Is the numbers randomly generated? Yeah, the numbers are randomly generated, which is nice. But so I've got this CSX boxcar. Maybe that's a UP boxcar. Maybe that's an NS boxcar. Mix it up a little bit. My FPS is tanking. That's 15 FPS right there. But like this looks like the Walters or Atlas starter set that you go to the hobby shop and you buy, and you get like a CSX car or a CSX locomotive, a CSX boxcar, a CSX hopper car, and a CSX caboose, and an oval of track. This is what that reminds me of. This is what this entire game reminds me of when I only okay. This is what that reminds me of anytime I see any train simulator, like screenshot or otherwise, where it's the same kind of cars. I've seen people like, oh, I'm going to drive a UP train, so I'm only going to have UP cars. Okay, congratulations, you bought an Atlas starter set. Thank you. That's not prototypical, but okay. I would have loved to see them, mix it up. And who knows? Maybe in a couple of months, maybe next year, they will, spit out an update that adds more cars and does that. I know they already have a paid DLC locomotive you can buy, which I'm not going to buy that. And the reason is I've spent way too much money on Dovetail Games in the past. But, I feel like it wouldn't hurt them to mix it up a little bit. The other thing I don't like, and this was something apparently some of the British, I don't know who complained about it, but let's assume this tank car and that boxcar were 2 more locomotives. Now I get in Europe how they have different ways they run things, but in the US, typically your cab's forward and we don't care about that locomotive or that locomotive or that locomotive. If they were locomotives, we don't care about their orientation because as long as we can see at the front, we don't care if the other locomotives are all pointing backwards. That is prototypical. Go watch any train video where there's more than 3 locomotives pulling on the front, or more than 2 locomotives pulling on the front end, and you'll see that even 2 locomotives sometimes will both be facing the same direction. That is very prototypical. And when Train Sim World first came out, that was the case. The locomotives were pointing, you had the lead unit always pointing cab forward, and the other units were always random. And people complained about it. And Dovetail Games fixed it. So they, air quote, fixed it. They broke it. If this was another locomotive, and that was another locomotive, They'd be back to back, and this locomotive here and this locomotive, if it was a locomotive, would be nose to nose, because that is prototypical on some other part of the world, but on the United States, it is not. I mean, it happens, you will see it, but it's not the norm, and railroads aren't going to go out of their way to do that. The only time you really would see this, like, be the norm is if it was a local. And even then, you might have a local that's only got one locomotive, and you're going to have to run long hood forward at some point. Anyways, like I said, I don't want to make this video any longer than it already is. And these are purely just my opinions and my rantings about linear gameplay versus dynamic gameplay. I feel like all simulators, flight simulators, driving simulators, train simulators, boat simulators, fucking toilet bowl simulators, need to have dynamic gameplay. I mean, look at any flight simulator. You can fly your plane wherever the hell you want. Look at driving simulators like BeamNG's Drive. You can just drive around the map. Even things like Euro Truck and an American Truck Simulator. Once you buy your own truck, you can just drive around and pick up missions as you want. And then even once you pick up a mission, you don't have to follow that path to the T. You can take a detour if you need to, if you want to. And I feel like really that's the kind of gameplay that we should always have when it comes to train simulators as well. And Trains and Run 8 really nailed that with... Why is the sun shining through this wall? I don't know. I feel like, Run 8 and Trains really nailed it with the way they do things. Like, that's proper. That works. That makes sense. That's fun. For me, at least. I know there's a lot of people who do really get, have a good time with Railworks and the way it plays. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I 100%, I can see how you guys have fun. I just, for me, and a lot of other people, I've talked to other people who also agree with me, we all kind of feel the same, that it holds your hand too much, and it's the linear gameplay, go here, do this thing, get a gold star, is just not what we are looking for in a train simulator. That's just not what's fun for us. Anyways, that's it for this video. It's about 27 minutes long. I like to rant. I've been having this conversation the past couple days with people, and I was just like, oh my god. Anyways, thank you for watching. Comment, subscribe, send me nasty hate mail. I don't care. I honestly don't care. I mean, subscribe if you want, but send hate mail, don't care. Comment positive things, cool, kudos, whatever. I'm probably going to do a ranting video talking about the shortfalls of other train simulators. This is probably going to be a common thing, like, maybe not a series, because I don't know when I'd record it, but, I think I want to do it more often. So, thanks for watching. Till later.